ESPN Radio. This is the Thundering Herd Podcast.
Oh, it's the Herd on ESPN Radio. Wherever you may be, however you may be listening, thanks for making us part of your day. Presented by Progressive Insurance. All of our guests via the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Simulcast, as always, on ESPNU. Great stuff from Peter King today. Jason Whitlock on our show. Tom Penn from Saigon will be joining us today. We go international. Bill Polian in studio. Good guest today. You know, funny about when you host a radio show, and maybe this is just the way guys operate, like a lot of the times, you can be partially right or partially wrong, but the audience mostly wants to sort of marginalize everybody in an argument. That guy's right and that guy's wrong. Well, a lot of the times, they're both sort of right and both sort of wrong. That happens. In fact, I would say that happens a lot more than this guy's right and this guy's wrong. But that's no fun. That story's no fun. Here's an example of both people are right, but yet everybody's taking sides. Charles Barkley's an idiot. Charles Barkley's right. Analytics are overrated. Analytics are everything. The answer isn't either. The answer is Charles is sort of right, and analytics are pretty important sometimes. So Charles Barkley came out. So let's play the bite, not the one we were going to play. Play the one from a couple days ago where Charles Barkley rips Daryl Morey, the Houston Rockets GM, who's a big analytics guy.
I'm not worried about Daryl Morey. He's one of those idiots who believe in analytics. He went out and got James Harden and got Dwight Howard. Ain't going to tell me that's analytics. Then he went out and got Trevor Ariza. But then he went out and got Josh Smith. So, first of all, I've always believed analytics was crap. And I never mentioned the Rockets as a legitimate contender because they're not. And listen, I wouldn't know Daryl Morey if he walked in this room right now.
All right, so it got really personal with Daryl Morey. Oh, it got real personal, which you don't want to do, but it got real personal. Here's the truth about the 12 best teams in the NBA right now, record-wise. Only Atlanta doesn't have a star. You need players. Charles, now play the other bite. The other bite about Daryl Morey. There's a second one. Play this one when he makes fun of analytic people, basically calls them out, sort of is nerds. Go ahead.
Analytics don't work. What analytics did the Miami Heat have? What analytics did the Chicago Bulls have? What analytics do the Spurs have? They have the best players. They have coaching staffs who make players better. And like I say, the Rockets sucked for a long time. So they went out and paid James Harden a lot of money. They got better. Then they went out and got Dwight Howard. They got better. They had Chandler Parsons. And no, this year they went out and got Ariza. The NBA is about talent. All these guys who run these organizations who talk about analytics, they have one thing in common. They're a bunch of guys who ain't never played the game, and they never got the girls in high school, and they just want to get in the game.
Okay, by the way, he's a little right there, because I've known a lot of analytics guys and a lot of sabermetrics guys. They're not the big, strapping, good-looking guy. A lot of them are data guys. A lot of them are little guys. A lot of them are guys that weren't great athletes, and a lot didn't get the girls. I'm not saying all. I'm just saying, again, this is not about Charles right, wrong. Charles, in basketball, 12 best teams in the league right now, record-wise, they all got stars. They all got stars. Atlanta, Al Horford, Jeff Teague, really good players. High-end players, B+, A-. Everybody got stars. And a lot of these analytic guys get real defensive. So yesterday, the analytic mountain grew. Whoa. Charles wrong, this wrong. Let's be honest, Jim Boeheim's got a title. When did he win it? Carmelo Anthony, who analytically, data-wise, not a great player. Kentucky basketball had a bunch of good players. And when they had their best player, Anthony Davis, that's when Calipari wins his title. An interesting email yesterday, Scott Briggs in Chicago said, the thing people don't understand about analytics, and this is really interesting. He says, they don't give you the answer. It gives you the odds that an answer will be correct. Absolutely. But he also makes this point. There are some problems that analytics can't consistently solve. Basketball could be one of those. It may be true, more true, that basketball games are simply decided by the team of the two best players relative to the other team. That's the point. is basketball, because there's only 5 guys on the court. One great player can have a disproportionate impact on the outcome of a game. Anthony Davis, Carmelo Anthony in college. Now, Charles Barkley, and this is where Charles again is right. Here's the Charles Barkley bite, where he brings up a point that you can't really dispute.
I don't believe in analytics. First of all, they're just statistics. I think some statistics matter, but the bottom line is you got to have tremendous talent to win in any sport. So this notion that you can just put a smart team together by just statistics, I don't believe it. There's a reason, the Miami Heat went to 4 straight finals. So they had LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade. Soon as LeBron leaves, the Cavaliers, they're a contender, and the Heat drop off the face of the earth.
Bingo. And you can't argue it. Miami lost 1 dude. They're no good. Miami had 1 dude. They were great. Yes, Charles got personal, and he devalues analytics completely. That's wrong. But some of the analytics nerds get really defensive. And in basketball, you go look a lot of these titles in the last 30 years, Detroit's an outlier. You need the best player in the league. And if not, you need the second best player and the 4th best player. It's not football where there's choreography. Like a quarterback can be amazing, but if he doesn't get protection, Tom Brady's awful against the Chiefs. It's not baseball where you can have the best starter and the best cleanup hitter and the best outfielder. You have a bad bullpen, you can't win games. Basketball, you can have all sorts of flaws analytically. You could be poor analytically. But you had LeBron and D. Wade. You didn't have a center. You didn't have a bench. By the way, analytically, the first year those guys were together, they weren't very good. Spoelstra, die-hard analytic guy, improved their offense second year. But it should be noted they got to the finals the first year, and they weren't analytically great. And if LeBron didn't curl up in fetal position, they would have beaten Dallas and won the title. So this is an example of Barkley isn't all wrong and isn't all right. Analytic people aren't all right and aren't all wrong. It's in the middle. Analytics do matter to a point. But basketball is a very unique sport. It has always been a players' league. The NFL is a coaches' league. Almost no player outside of a quarterback is even worth a point in the NFL. LeBron James is worth 30 games. Shaq was worth 25, 30 games. You got to find anybody in any other sport. No baseball player's worth that. That's why analytics are more valuable in baseball. Outside of quarterback, that's why analytics are important. It's about winning a lot of little battles. NBA, get the best player in the game, in the sport. Carmelo in college, LeBron in the NBA. You're going to be great. You can blow through a lot of analytics. Opening rant brought to you by Regis. New way to work. Call 1-800-OFFICES, 1-800-OFFICES. And I like them. I am an analyst. I like analytics a lot. My favorite movie, the 2 favorite movies, it's funny because I don't talk a lot of baseball and hockey. My 2 favorite movies of all time are Miracle on Ice and Moneyball. And I think the Moneyball Michael Lewis books are fantastic. I love the movie. I think it's fascinating, and I think it absolutely matters. Hoops is different. Hoops is different. I did play the Powerball lottery yesterday. My staff was shocked by this. I have my ticket right here. I don't have one stinking number that's right. But even though I'm a guy that believes in putting your money away and slowly building a business, you have to play the Powerball lottery. If at any point in your life you could completely change the shape of your life for $1, you have to play the lottery. You have to play it. And I got to tell you something. I couldn't tell you the last time. I play it every time it gets big. I couldn't tell you the last time I had one number right. So I'm going to go away from my theory, which has always been let the guy at the convenience store just automatically get the numbers. I've been doing that for the first 50 years of my life. I'm going to change it all up. I have come up with a foolproof 5 numbers I'm going to go with.
Hang on. First of all, why do you play the lottery? You're pretty affluent.
I play it because for $1, I don't play it to pay my cable bill. For $1, I can completely change my life. $1. $1. You can't change your life.
I mean, you're doing okay.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what.
You should be buying lotto tickets for me and John.
I'm going to tell you something. I used to say if I won Powerball, I'd still come to work. No, I would not. Everything's changed for me.
Are you going to use analytics to pick your numbers?
No, I'm going to do something really creative.
Just use talent.
When I was born, my high school basketball number, my daughter's date of birth. I'm going to go like Cliche City. But the theory I'm using, which is I go to the convenience store, here's a buck, give me a card, it doesn't work anymore. I haven't won squat. I haven't had a number right. In 20 years of playing this thing, not even once have I had a number. So clearly it's not working. I'm going to go to my own little theorem and theory and my own numbers, and because I'm tired of not getting a number right.
Nerd alert!
Mike, you're in the herd on ESPN Radio. Your thoughts on the Barkley thing?
You know, I think the biggest problem I have with the non-analytics crowd, or the people who rip analytics in general, is they seem to have the thought that the analytics crowd thinks that numbers will completely replace talent, but that's not the case. It's supposed to enhance talent. So you get a guy like Kyle Korver, who's a great shooter, but analytics show that he doesn't just shoot well, but the amount of spacing on the floor that he has and the overall effect that he has on the Hawks, that's kind of what they do. Is analytics, I feel like, take a specific skill and use that to enhance the overall quality of the team.
Yeah, and Mike, Shane Battier had that quality, where Shane Battier did a lot of little things where it doesn't blow you away. I'm going to bring on Tom Penn later because he's used analytics before, and what analytics can do is sometimes emotionally our eyes get fooled. That we watch something and we make an opinion based on what we see, but the truth is, and a great example is Carmelo's a great offensive player. But Carmelo takes a lot of bad shots. And if you're shooting 44% and I can pass the ball more and as a team shoot 47%, then he's not a great offensive player. He's a very inefficient offensive player who scores a lot. So Carmelo Anthony is a great example of you watch him and you're like, great offensive player. You break down the numbers, he's very inefficient. Allen Iverson was like that. A lot of times 6'1" point guards who shoot a lot, like a Westbrook or an Iverson or a Marbury, they're wildly inefficient. And they shoot 43% from the floor. Go to a big and shoot 48. You're a more efficient basketball team. So what they're really used for, in my opinion, analytics, our eyes fool us, our hearts fool us. We have emotions, we watch stuff, and we root. We're human. Analytics gives you another layer of information your eyes don't see.
Colin Cowherd. Looking good. Well, looking okay.
The Thundering Herd Podcast.
I am for redemption, and I was as critical of Richie Incognito as anybody, but I believe he deserves a second chance, and I read your column. You do as well. Do you think the NFL, though, Peter, is a little uneasy with Richie back?
I don't think so, Colin, because basically he was banned for a year and a half. A half of a season. Clearly, there was no way he was going to play the rest of 2013, and then banned last year because, in essence, no team wanted to bring him in. And I actually thought Denver was going to bring him in at one point.
You discovered, if you didn't already know, the way 2015 social media works, without a great deal of nuance and people jump to conclusions. You mentioned in a column last week that Darren Sharper was eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame for the first time next year. People took from that, how can you consider this guy who's accused of sexual assault in several states? But you brought up a very interesting point, and I'd like you to go back on this. You're not allowed to even consider Darren Sharper's off-field problems as a Hall of Fame football voter, are you?
That's correct. And, I think, A, we're not supposed to consider off-field stuff, and B, I don't think we should consider off-field stuff. Because then you get down, as I wrote on Monday, you get down into this slippery slope. Suppose you say anybody convicted of a felony, and by the way, he hasn't been convicted of anything yet. Anybody convicted of a felony shouldn't be eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. How do you draw the line at any crime, really? I think it's probably much ado about not very much, but the bottom line is I don't want to be anybody's judge and jury and executioner. I just don't.
Now, Peter, Lawrence Taylor, there are times, as you noted, with Lawrence Taylor, when you can consider off-field things.
That took him off the field for 4 games at the start of a season in the 80s.
Yeah, drug suspension, yeah.
He had a substance abuse suspension. And so he was gone for 4 games. And so clearly you can consider if the guy wasn't there and he wasn't there for his team and it wasn't injury related, obviously that can and should be considered. But his career obviously was so fantastic that he was a first ballot. He was in on the first ballot anyway.
Peter King, the MondayMorningQuarterback.com. You know, I was saying this morning, NFL free agency, I think certain guys fit their certain roster. Darrelle Revis had more of an impact with New England than Tampa. I think Des Bryant, with a good quarterback and a good O-line, allowing him to go deep, has huge value with the Cowboys, even though he's a mega talent. But if you look at NFL free agency, Peter, especially with these skilled players, these wide receivers, they don't take the quarterback with them, and they have little impact. In your years of NFL free agency, has it ever won a Super Bowl? Do you ever think it, because to me it's a draft league. Do you ever think free agency won the Super Bowl?
Well, I think Revis really helped the Patriots this year, although I don't think you could argue that he won them the Super Bowl. I think that even though the Packers weren't a one player, I don't think Reggie White won them the Super Bowl. Reggie White was a huge impact player on those really good Packer teams, the Brett Favre Packer teams. And I would also say this, I think that probably the best example of a free agent that won his team a Super Bowl was Drew Brees. Because I think probably that Reggie White and Drew Brees are the 2 best players in the 20-year history of free agency, 21-year history of it. And I think they both contributed a lot, but probably Drew Brees the most.
I read your story on Tom Brady post-Super Bowl and Josh McDaniel. I found it fascinating that Tom Brady opened up to you for an hour and told you how they prepared for the Seahawks and what worked and what didn't. I don't recall ever reading anything that in-depth about a game plan before. Were you surprised that Brady took you to a place of real information, which they don't uncover much in New England, because he basically laid out the pregame, the game, how they thought, how they attacked, and you just don't get it from New England?
I wasn't that surprised. I like to pick out something that really will resonate kind of in history. And the way I sold this to Brady basically was I told him, I want to tell the story, the inside story of these last 2 drives. From a quarterback's perspective, I had already talked to Josh McDaniels after the game in great detail about several things about the drives. But Colin, the one thing that will resonate with me, that will live with me forever, when I think back on this is, and this is what makes Brady great, in my opinion. The worst play that he had on the last 2 drives was the bad pass he threw to Julian Edelman before he threw the touchdown pass to Amendola on the first drive. He threw a 115-mile-an-hour fastball, and it was high, and he had Edelman open. He just made a bad throw. And he described in intimate detail about how, sometimes even when the ball leaves your fingertips, you're still trying to decide what to do and how hard to throw it. And then he goes to the sidelines and he says to Josh McDaniels, please come back to that throw, please, on the next drive. And he knew that on the first and goal from the 3, on the next drive, he knew that McDaniels was going to come back to that play. He did. McDaniels, right after the throw, he points to Brady. Brady points to him. McDaniels saying, I knew you'd get it right. And Brady said, thanks for having faith in me because I screwed up the last one.
Yeah.
And it's like on the playground. Hey, I screwed it up the last time, but don't worry, I'm going to get it right this time. And it's one of the biggest plays of a guy's career, maybe the best quarterback of all time. And I just love the fact that McDaniels and Brady remembered his worst pass, and they turned it into his best pass.
Peter King, the MondayMorningQuarterback.com. The Brady stuff is absolutely a look behind the curtain. It's fantastic. I read some of it verbatim 2 days ago. Football season's not over. As interesting as we've ever had you today, Peter. Thank you so much, man.
I really appreciate it, Colin. Thank you.
Colin Cowherd. Looking good. Well, looking okay.
Thank you. Hold on, let me blow my nose.
The Thundering Herd Podcast.
Tom, I always kind of believe salary caps were created in sports because of fear, that if you didn't have salary caps, there's a fear that big, rich markets will dominate sports. But increasingly, as Mark Cuban told us a couple days ago, markets have become less relevant in the NBA because players have such strong brands, they can make their money and get their brand out no matter where they play. Is it time to consider loosening up or getting rid of the salary cap? Because it seems to me to accumulate talent faster, the rebuilds in the NBA take forever. I mean, the Knicks, the Sixers, the Kings. I mean, your takeaway on the salary cap, it seems like it's too long in the NBA to rebuild teams.
Keep it. Stop with this. Of course we need a salary cap. Of course Mark Cuban wants to get rid of it. Then he can spend wildly, which is what he would prefer to do when it benefits him. It's not big market, small market. It's big spender, small spender, and protecting the owners from themselves. It's necessary to keep competitive balance and to keep a governor on all of this sort of stuff, or it'll go wild like you see in the English Premier League. In the English Premier League, there's only like 3 teams that have a chance to win it, and it's because the sultans or the czars or the sheiks who own the teams are willing to spend wildly. So you have to put this kind of thing in. You get a healthy league where teams can turn quickly. You say it takes long. Hell, in Boston, they were worst to first back in 2007. They had the worst league record in the East, and they quickly flipped it because they traded the 5th pick. Then they got Kevin Garnett to come, and they went to the finals and won it. So you can't be that generalistic about it.
Well, baseball doesn't have a salary cap, and right now medium-sized St. Louis really dominates the sport. Kansas City's in the World Series. Baseball seems to have – Pittsburgh's now a playoff team. Baltimore's now a playoff team. Couldn't I argue it can be done without salary caps?
Sure. It can work there. There's been those situations where small market teams get that critical mass of talent and make a run like Miami did that year, and they advance, but then they can't keep it. They can't sustain it because the Yankees come in and Red Sox come in, swoop in, and take all their talent. So, there are going to be those little blips either way, but all in all, it's much healthier to have a cap.
Charles Barkley came out and said, analytics are for guys that didn't play the game and never got the girls in high school. And I'm sure guys who didn't play the game and didn't get the girls in high school were probably deeply offended. How much value do you put in basketball analytics?
Well, Charles is right in a sense, because those of us that didn't play the game, some of us might have got girls in high school, but we didn't achieve at that level. Look, there's a certain gut element to the game that only players and true coaches understand. There's no doubt in that. And that is about that gut instinct when you see it, when you know it, and then the chemistry that you try to create. Analytics can't help you with that. What analytics can do is help you see something that your gut doesn't tell you at first, or to make you not make a mistake. Where your gut is wrong, you go on the emotional what you see, then you look at the numbers and it does not verify what you see and what you feel. That's the proper place for analytics. They shouldn't lead the story. It's never all about that, never has been, even for the most analytical teams. It's a piece of the puzzle. It's necessary. It's smart. Charles is making noise. The truth is it's an important part of the decision, but his part is more important.
Is there a moment in your career, Tom Penn, front office, former GM in this league, is there a moment when analytics really became part of an acquisition for you and a team you were with?
Yeah, there were several moments where our numbers guy would come and say, take a look at this player for this reason. And I'd say, no. Volume shooter, whatever else. He'd say, no. Dig deeper, look where the guy is getting his shots. Look how he's not being played right. You look at it and you go, Then you get your basketball guys together, you have the conversation, and we made a trade in Portland on that exact fact pattern, and it worked out great. So, yes, those things have happened. In the draft in particular, Colin, because that's where you have all this time to study all these players. Truth is, I've seen it go the other way there, where the analytics have hurt a draft decision because you dig into the details too much for your own good. The guy's a hell of a player, and that's how Gilbert Arenas gets to the second round,
Tom Penn joining us. What do you make of all these guys resting? LeBron took a 2-week hiatus. Blake Griffin, before he was hurt, admitted to dunking less. Is the reality of the NBA now, stars believe their legacies are built solely on titles? Are you comfortable with these long layoffs and resting during the regular season?
Not really. I mean, for decades, guys have laced it up and played. I think it's more about, I don't know if it's about titles as much as just preserving. It's hard, man. When you see what they go through day to day, week to week, month to month, it is such a grind. And I always marveled at the true pros who went every night. And LeBron used to be that guy. All these guys used to be that guy. So there's this little bit of the cool factor, the Spurs factor, the, hey, this is smart, we're in it for the long haul. I personally don't like it. I get it when you're long in the tooth like Tim Duncan, and then it makes a heck of a lot of sense when you're in it to win it as the Spurs are. But for guys in their prime, I don't know that it helps that much.
Tom Penn, I'm told in Saigon, which is amazing because your phone clarity is remarkable. So whatever you're using, whatever service, mobile device, we strongly encourage America consumes it and buys it.
I'll tell you what, with the number of motorcycles flying by me over here, deep into the evening, wow, what a place. It's really bustling. It's really cool.
Good talking to you, Tom.
All right. Same there.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Technology gone bad. Gone bad. This is the Thundering Herd Podcast.
Hall of Famer in the house, Bill Polian. Does coffee taste better? Does a bagel taste different when you're in the Hall of Fame?
No.
It doesn't? So what's the point of even being in if food doesn't taste better? Congratulations.
It looks nice.
Congratulations. One of my favorite people. All right, we're getting into this analytics stuff. This is great because, and I've been saying, I think analytics in baseball and football, hockey, I buy into more than basketball, where I think a transcendent player blows through them. Let's go to football. Analytics has grown over the last 30 years, right?
Yeah.
More of them?
More of them.
What do you make of that?
Less that are viable, but the statistics that and analytics that have retained value over time are very valuable.
Give me a couple you really like and you think have value.
First of all the measurables. They have held true over time, and they don't vary. For example, the 40-yard dash. Paul Brown invented timing on the 40-yard dash because 40 yards was what you ran covering a punt. That's why he did it.
Okay.
Perfectly good reason to do it. Over time, we figured out position by position, including right down to nickelback and dimeback, what the norms are for success within your own system. It varies from system to system. But what the norms are for success, and the 40-yard dash is always a valid measurement.
What works, yes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely right. Now, most people talk about 10-yard time for offensive linemen. When you do studies, it's not a valid measure. The 40 ends up being a valid measurement.
So
don't ask me why.
10 doesn't tell you if a guy's good or not.
It doesn't.
Okay, give me some of the stuff that you know as a football guy you'd look at and you'd be like, that's a bunch of stuff.
Going for it on fourth down. I've read study after study, and when I was general manager, people would inundate me with studies every year, which say go for it on fourth down. And I always go back to Coach Belichick playing the Colts in our building. I can't remember the year, but every game we played with them was pivotal anyway. And they've got the ball.
And they went for it deep
in their own territory.
25-yard line, something like that.
Yes, with maybe a minute and 30 left in the game.
Right.
We anticipated, Coach Caldwell anticipated that they were going to do it and ordered the defense to stay out there on the field.
Oh, so you thought they would go for it.
We did, and here's why. Because he made that decision for the following reasons. One, he had no pass rushers left. They were all hurt. Two, their defense had not performed well from about the midpoint of the second quarter on.
You were going up and down the field.
We were going up and down
with
the field.
ease quickly.
That's correct. Three, the most important part, if he makes it, we don't get the ball back, the game is over. So his risk-reward in that situation was great. Now, fortunately, we were able to stop them and went down the field and scored a touchdown to win the game. Okay, fair enough. But he made that decision based on certain indicators at the time. Statistics had nothing to do with it, nor could have analytics had predicted that situation. My point being that going for it on fourth down is not a question of success over time. In fact, it is not at all. It's a question of what the game situation is, what the personnel situation is, what the clock situation is, and what your systemic situation is at the time.
Bill Polian, Hall of Famer. It's the Herd on ESPN Radio. Is there a position that you're more willing to look at that and say, boy, I know because you've told me stories about tackles have to have an arm length, guards don't. On the offensive line, there were absolute measurables that you've told me before. They just don't vary. They're right.
No, they don't. They are right. You know, at tackle, you need arm length. If you don't have arm length, it's awfully difficult to play and to play effectively. And you sometimes, if you have a guy who has short arms, boy, he better have incredible numbers in the other athletic measurements to make up for that. But over time, you are not going to make a living with short-armed offensive tackles.
Couldn't I make an argument the most important position, quarterback, measurables and analytics don't work because so much of it is leadership, which you can't quantify. So much of it's maturity, which you can't quantify. Jameis Winston, all the numbers are great, but when he acts like a 15-year-old, I mean, quarterbacks, like Andrew Luck, I'm an idiot. I can tell Andrew Luck's great. I can tell Peyton Manning's great. But, boy, there's a lot of whiffs from a lot of smart guys on quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the analytics to me that makes sense with quarterbacks, and this is over time and studying it and testing it, is one, accuracy.
You throw an
accurate
measure
ball.
that.
You measure that. Two, judgment, and you measure that by interceptions. So you take a look at the statistic. What the statistic does is tell you what questions to ask. And then you go back and look at the tape and get those questions answered. It does not give you the answer per se. You have to validate it.
Bill, it's funny, though. Elway, Namath, Favre, Luck throw tons of picks. I mean, some of the great ones have
relative to touchdowns. It's relative to touchdowns.
So they give you a lot of extra TDs you don't get from average guys.
Exactly right.
So you'll swallow the picks.
Right now, you'd like because of the efficiency of passing games, you would like for the ratio of touchdowns to interceptions to be 3-to-1.
3-to-1.
2.5-to-1. It used to be 2-to-1. Now it's edged up. I would take 2.5-to-1 if the guy had virtually everything else going for him. But the top guys are 3-to-1 or better interceptions to touchdowns. Now that it gets better as the guy gets older because he's more accomplished and more experienced. But judging guys from college, if they're not 2-to-1, that's a red flag.
At least 2-to-1.
At least 2-to-1. Yeah.
Bill Polian joining us, the Herd on ESPN Radio. I was talking about free agency, and Reggie White was a great free agent that helped the championship. Drew Brees, one of the great free agent players of all time. But I've always felt to a large degree in sports, the St. Louis Cardinals, your Colts, the New England Patriots, you win through the draft. Here's a player like Des Bryant, where every game he caught 5 balls, they won. But I would argue he works with Tony Romo on that offensive line. You put him in Jacksonville, it may not work because the quarterback may not be a great deep ball thrower. The offensive line doesn't give Des time to separate and go deep. What is your belief on free agents? We fall in love in the media with it. We talk a lot about it. It leads SportsCenter. your history with free agents, bringing a new star into a locker room, and you don't know the odometer all the time.
Oh, boy, is that an important consideration. Well, there's a couple of rules to follow. Number one, if you have a good player who's your own player, sign him first before you go anywhere else.
I've said that before, yes.
Because you know what he is, you know how he fits, you know how he fits in your locker room. Number two, and most importantly, don't ever pay an outside free agent more than you're paying your best player unless he's demonstrably better, because you are going to upset the chemistry in the locker room big time. That's an important consideration. Three, you get your blue chippers, your difference makers through the draft. There are going to be no Des Bryant is not getting to free agency. I guarantee you.
Because Dallas knows in their system he's touchdowns.
Yeah, he's not getting out. So what's left in free agency when we get to March 10th is not the big names, not the Des Bryants, or even the DeMarco Murrays, perhaps, but the guys who are the second-level players, the B-level players.
Beluga, the tackle, maybe?
Perhaps.
Randall
That's
Cobb,
correct.
maybe?
No, Randall Cobb, I doubt, gets out.
The Green Bay won't let him out.
I doubt that.
It'll be an offensive lineman.
That's correct. A B-level player. So don't overpay a B-level player. Pay him what he's worth. Now, on the market, two things happen. You have to overpay if you want to get the guy early.
Yeah.
The question is how much.
Right.
And that then leads to the locker room issue. Is player X that you're signing so much better than player Y that he deserves twice the money? If the answer is no, then don't do it.
What would you pay for Revis right now in New England?
Well, Revis is arguably among the top 3 or 4 corners. I would pay him big time. No question.
Big time?
Big time.
Okay. And by the way,
he's an A player.
He's an A player, and he seems to fit the culture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, he fits anywhere. It doesn't matter.
He's really good.
Yeah.
All right. Would you pay Ndamukong Suh?
Yes. I wouldn't let him out.
Okay, see, that's the guy I like. Stanzik was crazy on this. Justin Houston, Kansas City.
Yes, pay him.
Okay. Des Bryant, pay him.
Yes.
All right. Let's just see if I missed anybody else. All right. Okay, here's one more. A little question for you. We were talking this morning about, you had talked about what's important in the NFL. I contend, and I may be loopy, but of the most transcendent receivers I've ever seen in my life, Fitzgerald, Calvin, Moss, T.O., Ocho, no Super Bowls. I think the wide receivers become the home run hitter in baseball. There's value. He jumps off the screen, but he can be a diva. A lot of times they don't want to block. I'm not sure they're good for the locker room. I think quarterbacks sometimes feel a necessity to throw to them. It can disrupt chemistry. Where do you put? You give me all the positions. What are the 3 most important positions in football today? Quarterback's one given. After that,
left tackle.
Left tackle.
You have a quarterback.
To protect your quarterback.
To protect the quarterback. Rusher.
Rush in.
With inside rusher being more valuable than outside.
There's not many of those, though.
No, God only made very, very few.
Okay.
And then you go to the offensive side of the ball, running back and wide receiver.
I don't like them. Seattle didn't have any good receivers.
No, and they lost the Super Bowl.
Well, New England. So you
New England had Gronk and Edelman.
You like Edelman?
Yeah, absolutely, I love Edelman. I thought he should have been the MVP of the Super Bowl. No denigration to Tom.
So what happened to Corner? I thought Corner was everybody's favorite player.
When you analyze things, and you analyze it over time, you find out that corners are not as valuable as people think they are.
Is that because there's so many receivers now that one corner you can roll away from him?
That's correct.
So they just don't have the impact that you need 2. Seattle and New England have 2 very good corners.
You need 2. You probably need 3. And then they need rush to make them effective. Nobody can cover anymore with the rules being what they are for a long period of time.
Putting style in black T-shirts. It's Colin Cowherd, the Thundering Herd podcast.
Jason Whitlock's got a new website and a friend of the show. And it's interesting when you talk about culturally certain people we sort of allow and gravitate to have opinions on many things. Jay Billis, Bill Simmons, Charles Barkley. You see this often in politics. A 4-star general can go on the Today Show and get strong political comments. Charles Barkley has become that on a lot of topics. Jason Whitlock joining us. Are you comfortable with Charles having that power, Jason, on a lot of topics?
I was not probably a month ago. I thought that, to be honest with you, I was very skeptical of Charles. I thought he was inauthentic. I thought it was stick. I thought that he had maybe taken a page from Rush Limbaugh and talked about a lot of racial issues and cultural issues because he knew that would keep him relevant. But, we sent a reporter, Jesse Washington, to spend some time with Charles and spend some time in Charles' hometown and do a long-form profile of Charles. And I've now completely flipped, and Charles is 100% authentic. He's coming from a real place. I don't think I agree with everything that Charles says, but I don't have a problem with him espousing his opinions.
By the way, when does the site launch? What's it called?
The site's going to launch this summer. I would think around June or July, but at some point this summer. And it's going to be called, and we're breaking this news right here, Cowherd, it's going to be called The Undefeated. It's a name that we came up with after Maya Angelou passed away. And I was looking on the Internet the day that she passed away, and I ran across a quote that she had: "You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated. In fact, it may be necessary to encounter defeat so you can know who you are, what you can rise from, and how you can still come out of it." And I think that speaks to the African-American journey perfectly, and I think it speaks to the journey of athletes and all Americans that, it's not what you get knocked down from, it's what you get up from that defines you.
Jason Whitlock joining us. NBA All-Star Weekend. I once heard somebody say, it may have been Mike Wilbon, I don't remember who it was. It was the Black Mardi Gras. It was
Black Thanksgiving.
Black Thanksgiving. Did you say that?
No, that's Mike Wilbon.
To me, I'm going to watch the three-ball shooting. I'm kind of over the dunk contest. I don't really like all-star games in general. In the African-American community, how important, how relevant is the All-Star Weekend?
I think it's a very relevant social weekend. I think the game has lost some of its luster, as have all All-Star games. The more money these guys have made as professional athletes, the less effort they put into these All-Star games, their brands, and they're protecting their individual businesses. But as a social event, a social cultural event, All-Star Weekend is, one of the highlights for African Americans. We're going to descend upon New York City. I'm already here now, and have a good time. We're going to, go to some good parties and hang out with the athletes and, hopefully see some celebrities and whatnot. But it's a huge event for African Americans. It's, and for sports fans and for African Americans that love sports and for the sports writers and sports broadcasters, it's kind of where, we have traditionally come together and socialized and, talked about our careers and partied and had a good time.
I was talking about this earlier today, that I had a relationship with Jerry Tarkanian, often adversarial, when I covered him out of college. And I said today, with the blogosphere and the expansion of sports has got everybody petrified, that if you couldn't have a Tark today. He couldn't be that outrageous. Sometimes somebody called him yesterday, some of his speech was oafish, that he would say things politically incorrect. He would be crucified today for the things he used to say at press luncheons. And it's interesting because I think Tark is the greatest character and the most authentic guy I've arguably ever covered in sports. But I think what's happening in sports today with all this chorus of critics and blogosphere, everybody's afraid to be authentic. Everything's corporatized. Could Tark exist today and be outspoken as he was 20 years ago?
Yeah, I think if you win, you can. Listen, Colin, I think you and I both push the envelope. But if you're successful and talented and good, I think people will tolerate that. Now, yes, are there people always sitting out there lurking, hoping that you say the wrong word or tweet the wrong thing and want to build their name by bringing you down? Absolutely. But I think, as Charles Barkley proves, if you're engaging and a winning personality that works on television, we're going to give you some room to say some things that maybe you shouldn't or make people uncomfortable. Now Charles, and I don't know Tark that well, but Charles has worked the media. He has befriended the media, and that's part of the reason why we give him a wide scope. But I think a lot of people would have defended Jerry Tarkanian and allowed him to be Jerry Tarkanian. Just like I think if Big John Thompson were around today, there would be those of us that would be defending his right to be outspoken and to make us uncomfortable. And it's like you got to have a personality where you're willing to put up with trolls. If you have enough confidence and enough people around you that you care about and they care about you, that you don't care what the trolls say, you can still survive. It's much more difficult. I certainly know that in this era of Twitter and, everybody wanting to be the Twitter police. And it's the easy route to go. Rather than put any thought or develop your own ideas and philosophies, it's easier just to sit around and lurk and hope to make a name off of bringing someone else down via what they say over Twitter or improperly spoken word or phrase or whatever. But I think there's still room to be a character because, I think that you and I are characters. I think Dan Levitard and Keith Olbermann and Bill Simmons, we're all still characters and still surviving.
Jason Whitlock is there. They have the new sports website. Initially, it was called, I think, Jason, you said the Black Grantland, but Mike Weiss got hired, and I've noticed some of your hires is going to be called the Undefeated. Well, I saw you hired Mike Weiss, and I'm like, well, Mike Weiss, Washington Post, not a brother. So, and you said it was going to be the Black Grantland, so it seems...
No, well, listen, I was on Bill's podcast trying to communicate with Bill and his audience and trying to describe the site in a way that would connect with them. On the day I was hired, there was not a well thought out. That was just two friends talking.
Okay.
And people have run with it. But no, we're going to be a site that examines race and culture through the lens of sports. We're going to try to do it thoughtfully. We're going to try to do it while having some fun. We're going to document the African-American journey through the lens of sports, and we're going to, document the Latino journey a little bit as well. But I hope that we're as critically acclaimed and do the same kind of high-quality work as Grantland, but I don't think we're going to be Black Grantland.
Okay, I got a couple questions for you. Brian Williams, would you have fired him at NBC News? What would you have done?
Yeah, I think you have to. Jeez. I think that...
Oh, you're a moralist. What happened to Jason Whitlock?
No. Because what's happened now is they've done a deep dive on all of his work. And it's like the Bill Cosby effect. Yeah. And so I think there are going to be more and more stories coming out about him exaggerating his work. And so his credibility has been shot. I
made this argument about Brian Williams. I don't watch nightly news because of trust. I watch the nightly news because who's got the best video, who tells the best stories, who's the most captivating. Some people trust Bill O'Reilly, some trust Rachel Maddow. I've never watched a news anchor because I think, I can trust him. He didn't make something up on the news. He embellished a story on Letterman. I think trust is one of those things we say we watch for. I think we watch what's the most interesting for our eyes and who does. I read the news.
No. Listen, I don't watch any of it in terms because almost anything on TV has been exaggerated to some degree. But what NBC is going to have to look out for, Brian Williams is a brand. Is he now a punchline? Is he just a meme through social media and Twitter? Does every time he come up, do we picture him sitting next to Tupac Shakur in a Mercedes instead of Suge Knight? And so if that has damaged his brand and their ability to make money off of Brian Williams, he's got to go. And I think if more and more of these stories come out that he's exaggerated this, I saw something about him perhaps exaggerating some things related to Hurricane Katrina. If he becomes a punchline, he can't host the evening news. And so perhaps he was right when he wanted to replace Dave Letterman or somebody, or Jay Leno or somebody on night. Maybe that's where he fits in better. He's a funny man.
Yeah. All right, Jason Whitlock, the Undefeated, the new site, just broke that news here. Good talking to you, bud.
Thank you, Colin.
Well, it's one for the money, two for the road in the herd.
A grocery store in a Los Angeles suburb is making headlines for selling dead raccoons to its customers. Employees at the Metro supermarket in Temple City claim they've been selling raccoon meat and all the fur that goes with it for years. It's wrapped and tagged with a fish department label at Metro supermarket in Temple City, California. They even include the raccoon teeth. It's just printed here. Don't look at me. It's only $9.99 per pound, though. That's not a terrible price. And I'm not going to comment on this. I'm just going to read it verbatim. Cinemas are buying plastic seat covers for 50 Shades of Grey's release. That 50 Shades of Grey movie is getting released to cinemas. In a bid to curb extensive cleanup, cinemas are fitting wipeable plastic covers to theater seating. I don't even know where to go with this. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. I mean, just go wherever you got that. Cinemas are buying plastic seat covers for 50 Shades of Grey release. I'm not going to talk about that on the air. I mean, I don't even know what to say about that. Hi, it's Colin. Friday, Richie Incognito is back in the NFL. I like it, many don't. Damian Woody, are you okay with it?
Get in the herd. Friday on ESPN Radio.